It's important to understand that large financial interests have taken control of our institutions. Their agents, corporate liberals and corporate conservatives, are visible a mile away. Basically, everyone on network news and the professional internet are commercial spokesmen. They all market pieces of elite policy. To recap, those include open borders, supply side tax cuts, deficit spending, the cultural sabotage of wokeism, supply side tax cuts, social spending without the taxes to pay for it, culture war to distract from the class war, and supply side tax cuts. The policies have obvious elite objectives. Mass migration knocks down working class wages, deficit spending transfers taxpayer dollars to interest payments on the debt, and wokeism confuses and demoralizes the public. Spokesmen for these run the gamut, from Bill Maher to Wolf Blitzer, Sean Hannity, Anderson Cooper, Christiane Amanpour, and Lawrence O'Donnell. They're as obvious as a hog on a pony, but it doesn't stop there. The sales clerks are also packed into government and the internet. That brings us to Bernie Sanders, a corporate progressive if ever there was one. He was on board with mass migration from day one. He also supports several of the policies just listed, as well as the boutique ideas and luxury beliefs of the college set. These are marked not only by how much they serve elite interests, but also how brutally they injure the working class. That brings us to his pontificating on the war in Gaza. On his website, there's an interview called No Money for Netanyahu, and the hustle starts in the title. Money for Netanyahu makes Netanyahu into the villain while overlooking both the cause and the objectives of the war. The creative language continues in the first line. Defensive war is rebranded as a great humanitarian disaster. Sanders tells us that 27,000 people have been killed. The source of the number, whether Hamas, Brian Williams, or a magic 8-ball, is anyone's guess. 80% of people have been displaced, and this is Israel's fault, not Hamas or the Arab states that refuse to accept refugees. It's half the size of Ireland, Sanders tells us, with heartless rhetoric. The refugees don't have food, fuel, or medical supplies. He goes to town reciting stats detailing the horrors of war and which sources are again missing. In another pronouncement, Israel has a right to defend itself, but not to go to war with the Palestinians. As a courtesy to Sanders and his brainless flock, the Merriam-Webster definition of war is included in the description. Many more details are left out. There's no mention of the Hamas billionaires, their obscene butchery, or their use of Palestinians as human shields. The missing food, fuel, and medicines were provided by Western states and by Israel itself. They were stopped because Hamas has been using the resources on war infrastructure. This with full support of the population in Gaza. It needs to be perfectly clear. The interview is oil money talking. Its purpose is to legitimize the petrostates and the terror groups they finance. Sanders, who has always been a corporate spokesman, is now an oil industry shill. His audience are useful idiots and dupes of the petrostates. They were easily brainwashed by cherry-picked university history, and they fell for the Nader scam like a pound of rocks. At the time, they were too dumb to understand third-grade arithmetic and the two-party system. In this case, they're ignorant of much more. That includes the local history, Palestinian terrorism throughout the region, Western support for Gaza, the Western record on human rights, and 1,500 years of anti-Semitism. But everything is coded in faux humanitarianism. Because self-righteousness is their drug of choice, it's easy for the left to ignore the facts and jump on the terrorist bandwagon. It bears repeating. Bernie Sanders is an oil industry shill, and his audience are useful idiots. Yet the whole operation is produced and directed by the same financial interests that advertise on network news. They're experts at killing several birds with one stone. Further objectives include fragmenting the public, sabotaging another election, and giving the financial elite yet another tax cut.